Growing up, I had a lot of assumptions. I assumed my life was uh, predictable and my possibilities were limited. I'd seen my family travel and settle locally, and mostly retiring from the job they had their entire lives. With age, reducing physical capabilities I thought was an accepted norm. Most of the older generation in my family started to change their dreams and desires over the years, and I assumed that was my path too. I had this dream of doing the trek, the Everest Base Camp, but that was a dream on my list, still unattempted most of my life. And here I was, almost 40 years of age, and many of those dreams were still unfulfilled. Thoughts, assumptions, and fears from my childhood started to haunt me. Am I too old for my dream? Will I also become a rerun of the pattern that I had noticed in my childhood? Maybe something about turning 40, maybe. I signed up for the hike, a hike that was like way beyond my capabilities. But this time, for a change, I decided to give permission to my dream. When I signed up, I was not physically fit, almost 40 years, and had a very super active and mean inner voice. I was living my life with my limited story and feeling very stuck. But by signing up for the hike, I decided to become my biggest ally and cheerleader on this journey. I was definitely pushed to my limits through this whole experience. But what I learned was something very beautiful. My limits do not define me, and when I gently push, my limits do expand. It's been a little over a year since I completed that hike, and three things that come to my mind, which I believe had made that journey slightly easier. Firstly, it was finding my personal why. I have had previous attempts on my fitness journey, but I never stuck to it. I was never clear on why I was doing it. But this time it was very different. My why was I wanted to get fit to be able to complete that hike. Knowing that why was a total game changer for me. And when the why is very personal, there's a strong desire to stay on that journey. Secondly, I believe preparing for the obvious challenges makes a journey slightly easier. Most of the times, we do know some of the obvious challenges that we will come on a new adventure. Our brains, by default, tends to get a little anxious whenever we face something unknown. To ease our brain out, we can start priming our brain, exposing our brain to these new challenges. When I was preparing for the hike, I did know that I would be putting myself in challenging situations, high altitude, early morning starts, and constant sense of physical discomfort during hiking. To ease into this, I started preparing myself in the months leading up to the hike. I started waking up earlier. I started matching my training routine to the hike. And I also journaled a lot about my fears, my dreams, my aspirations. What I was doing during this different act of preparation was I was priming my brain. I was slowly exposing my brain to these challenges so that my brain would fight a little less when actually exposed to this. Thirdly, it was mindfully creating my life stories. I think this was my biggest learning, was to look for evidences that helped me create the story that supported my dream. When I started my training, I had this perception about myself that on most days I'm lazy and I don't show up for my training. But when I look back on the days when I journaled, I actually found something very different. I do show up on most of the days. And when I didn't show up, I actually had valid reason for not showing up. And this little discovery changed my whole perception that I had about my fitness attempts. Our brain, by default, it starts looking for those negatives because it is trying to protect us. But we can train our brain to look for those non-negatives in our situations. This may feel like a lot of work initially, but I assure you, the inner voice starts becoming a little more curious and starts asking what else is true in this situation. This whole journey was a total transformation for me. Now I believe I have an abundant story and I have infinite possibilities in my future. I no longer feel limited by my age, and I have a strong belief that I can train my body and mind to support the dreams that I still have. Let this be a reminder for you to say yes to your Mount Everest. Say yes to the dream that you have been holding on for so long. What if that dream actually comes true for us? Each of us are on this unique and beautiful transformation journey. If you need a buddy to support you, to nudge you, to remind you of your whys, or maybe even help you discover those little evidences that is already showing you you're transforming, you can always reach out to me.